Hey, what's good, wrestling fans? Alright, so as you see from the topic, I'm going to be talking about GOLDUST today. I actually got a few emails asking me why I picked GOLDUST as one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers of all time, so I'm here to explain why. So they start out by saying, I've been a huge wrestling fan since I was 7 years old. I've done nothing but live, breathe, and eat professional wrestling. And back in 1995, I was about 14, 15 years old. Saw this wrestler on television. He debuted, GOLDUST. Started seeing his vignettes, and I thought, wow, this guy seems pretty interesting. He looks really intriguing. So after his vignettes and after he finally debuted, I seen the total package. I'm like, whoa, this guy is like nothing I've never seen before. I was like so fascinated by GOLDUST, his whole appearance, his appeal, like, was so unique and different at that time. For me, I've always been a huge fan of wrestlers that use psychological warfare as a big tactic. Jake the Snake Roberts, the old Undertaker back in the 90s, Raven back in his ECW days and WCW days, like, and Rampiro especially. I love wrestlers that just use mind games, that psychological warfare, and that's something that GOLDUST brought to the table. I mean, he was so good at really psyching out his opponents, making someone feel comfortable to his advantage, and I really dug that. I was like, wow, this guy is awesome, and then him with the fans, his whole character, very flamboyant, very homoerotic. And of course, wrestling fans, the demographic of wrestling fans are mainly straight young males. So of course you're not going to like him. And, he started taking a lot of heat. People calling him a faggot, spitting at him, throwing shit at him. And I was watching this, I'm like, wow, this guy is getting so much heat, getting so much hatred towards him. And is it because of his appearance or because he's portraying somewhat of a homosexual character? And as I was growing up, I thought, I can really relate to him because, one, I knew I was gay on a very young age. I knew I was gay for a long time. And so when I was watching him, I was like, wow, I see a guy here that I can really relate to. Not the whole part of him dressing up as a female, because I've never really done that before. Well, maybe for like Halloween, but hey, it's only Halloween, But the whole part of him getting just beat up by the fans, I mean, even when I was in school, people used to be like, oh, GOLDUST, that faggot, da-da-da. And I'm like, what the hell, why are you calling this guy a faggot for? Just because of his appearance. Now, back then, I knew that was Dustin Rhodes, and that he was a straight guy, married with a kid. But, other wrestling fans didn't know that. So they're thinking, oh, GOLDUST is really like that. And he got all this heat and hatred. So I'm thinking to myself, wow, I had to really start to defend him a lot. And I just really started liking his character more. His in-ring work was excellent. His feud with Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, that really was great. He used so much psychological warfare on him. Then when he had his casket match with the Undertaker, that was great. He had so many just started like touching the wrestlers and like really getting them so uncomfortable. It was great to see that. It was funny. I was laughing seeing that, because seeing the reactions of these people and everyone's getting pissed off or just having some kind of a regurgitated reaction to it, it really made me laugh, because GOLDUST was doing his job. He was a heel, but he was also a guy that was out there and that wanted to really push buttons, and that's what he did. He pushed buttons to the extreme, and he got that reaction. Although I felt it was very big, it was a big, like, really bad homophobic reaction, which was bad in a sense. But he got that heel heat. So that's why I was really intrigued with GOLDUST. I really enjoyed him as a character. I enjoyed him as a wrestler. GOLDUST was phenomenal. Great mic skills, great presence. He used that psychological warfare. He had that ring presence and the heel heat that made such a great heel. And he was such a unique person. I love that about him. Then after he kind of went out the GOLDUST route, and he became a good guy. I didn't really like him as a face. But then I liked him again when he teamed up with Luna Vachon and he became the artist formerly known as Goldust. He started like imitating different kind of people and is wearing his freakish outfits like crazy, and that was pretty cool, you know. But Goldust, to me, will always be one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers because he was a total package. Great ring skill, great presence, mic skill, the psychological warfare he used on the wrestlers and the fans. He had the total package, and that's what I liked about Goldust. And on top of that as well, I couldn't relate to him because of what people perceived of him to be, and I could really relate to that. So that's why I picked Goldust as one of my top 5 favorite wrestlers. So I hope that answered your question, Captain Hype. I know you asked me that. And to everybody else out there, you know, I know there's a lot of Goldust haters, and there's also a lot of people that really like the Goldust. I really would like to hear your opinions on what you thought of Goldust, because to me, I thought he was a really good wrestler. Now, Dustin Rhodes as Black Reign, you know, everyone knows he's pretty much past his prime, and he's not really doing good in TNA. I feel bad watching him because it's like he's so out of shape. He hasn't really put on a really good match yet. I wish, you know, he'll always be known as Goldust, and I think he knows that in the back of his mind, whether he likes it or not, he's going to always be known as Goldust. And I just can't see him as no other character, and I feel bad like watching him as Black Reign because I tried to get into him, his character and everything, but I just couldn't do it. I just could not do it. So that's all I wanted to say. You know, feel free to comment. Sure, if I hear some negative comments, fine. You know, to each their own opinion, but that's why I like Goldust, and that's why I felt like he was my top 5 favorite wrestler of all time, because Goldust to me was the total package. There was no one like him. Maybe back in the old, like, in the early 80s, there was a guy by the name of Adrian Street. He wrestled in the NWA. He kind of had this flamboyant gay gimmick, and he was like really dolled up and everything. So I think kind of in a way Goldust kind of copied that a little bit. But I'm sure nobody really knows who Adrian Street was. I'm sure probably Truth Slayer knows. But he was a good guy back then in the 80s, in the late 70s as well. But yeah, Goldust to me was my guy, man. I mean, he was awesome. I love wrestlers that use psychological warfare, and that's why I really got drawn to Goldust, because he could really outpsych his opponents, and he could really outpsych the fans, and he got that reaction out of them. And yes, he deserved his Intercontinental title run, and I wish he would have had a bigger push. You know, imagine seeing him as a heavyweight champion. That would have been something, but I knew that would have never ever happened because of his, I guess, his image. But you know, Goldust to me was a cool guy. He was cool. He was a cool wrestler, and that's why I liked him. So there you have it, folks. Should be coming back later on, making a few more videos, and we'll see what happens. But take it easy. Till next time.